Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's session on how you can go mobile and save 80% of fulfillment time. I'm Alex from Starshipper and I am your host today. Thank you guys so much for joining. I know that everyone is super busy at the moment with peak season coming up, so it's great to have your ears. Today, we are talking about something that is very close to my heart personally, which is about how going mobile can completely change the way you handle fulfillment. We will be looking at challenges many retailers face right now and how one small operational change, like going mobile, can make a huge difference on your customer experience. Before we get into it, I want to introduce our panelists. I'm really excited about who we've got here today. First up, we've got Chris Bradley, Managing Director at Luna Rae. Chris and I have worked very closely on their mobile fulfillment journey, and what they've achieved has been incredible. They've cut fulfillment time by 80% and saved over $20,000 in 6 months, which is insane. I've learned a lot from Chris along the way, so you guys are in for a treat from hearing directly from him. Welcome, Chris. We are also joined by Francis from Socket Mobile. I'm also super stoked to have him here. He's one of the brains behind the scanning technology that helped make results like Chris's possible. Welcome, Francis.
Hey Alex, nice to be here.
Cool. And just a little bit of housekeeping before we jump into it. Today's session is being recorded and we'll send out the on-demand link afterwards so you can rewatch and share with your team. And also, we will finish up with a live Q&A. So save all those questions up and drop them in the box anytime, and we'll go through as many as we can at the end. So before we talk about the how, I wanted to go very quickly into the why. And over the past few years, I've spoken to many retailers wearing both a product and a support hat. And no matter the size of the business, we always notice the exact same themes coming up. I'm sure to a lot of you guys on here, these will resonate. Things like paper slows everything down, it's slow to print them. It's slow to check manually against products and they're wasteful. Plus, as soon as you print a packing slip, they could be out of date. Um, Manual checking can lead to mistakes. So trying to match products against packing slips as you pick by hand means errors are bound to happen, especially when things get busy. It can be really hard to see what's happening in real time. So managers can't easily tell who's picking and who's packing at any given moment, which often leads to double ups or delays. One that's particularly common right now is that scaling can be quite tough. We're in peak season and bringing in seasonal staff adds in a lot of overhead. Paper and desktop is often quite complex. We often show too much information instead of focusing just on what that person actually needs to do. And finally, too many systems can slow everything down. More platforms means data has to travel across more places, and that's more points where things can fall over. After hearing this so many times, it seemed to me that automation and technology stopped at the packing bench, and that felt like not what Starship it was trying to achieve. So we saw this opportunity to take everything that Starship it does really well to the warehouse floor. So to illustrate that a little bit, um, I would show you what a common stack config looks like. So you would have your orders coming in on the left here. If you're using a WMS, they would end up in the WMS. It goes through all these different stages, picking, packing, shipping, before it lands in Starshipper. Then goes through the Starshipper rules engine and the label to the carrier. So as you can see, lots and lots of steps, lots of places one for data to go, which is slow, but also places for it to fail. Or an alternative is you're using Starshipper and you're using paper. So not as many steps, but a couple of manual steps in here. So you can see that you'll have to print a packing summary, which is a physical piece of paper. And then you could either jump to using the Starshipper app for packing validation, or you could also be using a packing slip. before the label print. So what we wanted to achieve instead is something that looks a lot more like this. As you can see, the steps cut way down, which means the time from when your order is placed to when it gets to the carrier is a lot shorter. And so it looks like we go from order to start ship it through our rules engine straight to the mobile app for picking, the mobile app for packing, straight from the mobile app to the carrier. So yeah, that's kind of the state we were dreaming about and what Chris will talk to a little bit in his section on what he achieved. So to make that a little bit more clear, I thought we'll walk you through the mobile app and what it looks like to fulfill an order in this way. So firstly, you would set up your phones to match your team roles. So every business has kind of a different way they work. You might have pickers and packers. You might have people who do both. You might have someone using the phone just to do the picking, and you want to use the desktop to do the packing and printing labels. So the app is there to support all of those flows. You can configure it to be in any or all of those modes. Then once your team begins picking, you can use totes. So totes is another configurable option. So we really worked hard with the mobile app to try and make sure that we can cover any workflow that you might have. In this one with totes, this allows a seamless handoff between someone who is picking. They'll put their items into a container like this one here, which Luna Rae use. And then once they're done, they can go and drop that container off to a packer, and the packer can bring up that specific order that was picked into that box. So it's really enabling a seamless handoff between two different roles in your business. Then we have probably the most important part of the step, which is barcode validation. So as you're picking and as you're packing, you can use your phone's camera, or even better, you can use the socket scanners, who Francis, we've got on the call, we'll talk to a little bit later on, to validate your items as you go. So you would go and pick your items up, you would scan them, the app will show how many you need to do and show you errors if you hit the wrong one, and give you audible cues as you go. Then the final part of the process is getting that label. So select your packaging from the app, select your carrier, and then hit print. And by the time you've hit print from your phone and walked to your printer, the label's already there waiting for you. Then the one thing that printing via the mobile app and packing via the mobile app allows us to do is really have that audit trail and accountability. So because we know who picked it and who packed it, we can store that against your orders and Starship it. And so let's say in 2 months' time, you need to go back and check what happened with a specific order. A lot of that data is there stored for you, as well as the ability to, just before you send the box out, you can take a photo of what was in the order and store that against it as well. So if you need to come back and prove that you actually did send the 3 things, you've got that image there ready for you. So that was a very quick run through of the mobile app. So now we're going to jump into a Q&A. We'll start off with you, Chris. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about Luna Rae?
Yeah, hi, thanks. Just making sure the audio works. Is that working? Fabulous. Okay, cool. Luna Rae is like an Australian-based jewellery brand specialising in fine gold and diamonds. We're also starting to launch silver and some other collections at the moment, and we're expanding. We're probably doing about 1,000 orders a month, expanding at about 3 times per annum. We have high value orders around 300 to 350 AUD per order, and we're using Ozpost for Australian deliveries, and then FedEx and DHL eCom for international orders. Most of our orders are a little bit different than a normal e-commerce company, where we assemble the items by putting, say, a pendant on a necklace and so forth. So we really require the ability to assemble items. And another part of our company, which is engraving, is needs multiple fulfillment orders as well. So yeah.
Awesome. Definitely have my eye on a few things on your store there, Chris. Would would you be able to give us a quick run through of your setup?
Yeah, I mean it's very simple now. Ultimately, in the morning, the pickers open up the mobile application, go to the picking tab, sort by an automatic tag that we have on the orders, and then for each order they scan a unique tote, and then scan each item that's on the order into the tote. During this time, our customer service team can be adjusting the orders if needed. If there's an issue with an order, CS will reach out to the packers via internal comms like Slack, advising the tote number and holding it until it's resolved. Once that's picked, the order is available for the packer to pack the order in the packing tab. The packer just scans the tote and it scans each item in the tote, assembles the order, takes a picture of the items in the order, and then prints the label. It's very, very simple.
And also you mentioned taking photos throughout the process. How has that helped with your customer support issues?
Look, it's a lifesaver. Taking images of items when they're dispatched just allows us to record what's been dispatched, and this allows customer service agents, especially our international team, to look at what items are actually in the order. So if a customer reaches out with an issue on the product, or they're missing an item, or there's a problem with the quality of the item, we can accurately see what we've sent them versus what they've sent us. Double scanning as well, obviously. Yeah, so if we do double scanning, it allows us to make sure that those items have been in the totes as well throughout the process.
Super key during peak season to leave you feeling confident, I guess, that you guys are getting all of your items out. So one of the things that we've highlighted is that you mentioned an 80% reduction in fulfillment time. So what parts of the process would you say you saw the biggest time savings?
It's really the pre-setup to picking the orders, and then obviously the arranging of the orders, and then savings around that. So without the mobile app, we'd need to print consolidated pick slips multiple times throughout the day, usually at the start, middle, and the end of the picking day, along with each individual pick slip and shipping labels. Since the label must be printed to clear them from the shipper queue, right? Selecting each order manually after checking there was no open CS requests on them as well. After printing consolidated pick slips, all items will be picked into a single tote, then sorted into individual orders for assembly and dispatch. If any item was missing or overpicked, which happens frequently, every order in that batch would need to be rechecked. Without the mobile app, the process just took significantly longer through each of the stages. Pre-pick setup would be like around 10 to 15 minutes, printing consolidated pick slips, verifying orders across the channels, checking customer service tickets, batch printing the labels and so forth. And then another 10 to 15 minutes bulk picking into a consolidated list, confirming the items, manually sorting into individual totes from there. Comparatively, like it takes about 10 to 15 seconds per order to do that pick now. So instead of it taking about 25 to 30 minutes to do 20 orders, it would take 5 to 6 minutes total. Yeah, really a lot quicker.
So those are all definitely great ones to see and all related to the actual fulfillment process. Would you say that there were any time savings you found not directly related to the picking and packing?
Definitely. So like ultimately, the fulfillment side has a saving as well, but when you have accurate picking and accurate packing through double validation scanning, as well as having images of them, it reduces customer service flows coming in because the item's been dispatched correctly. It's less reliant on pickers' ability to follow a complex SOP, less returns and the costs of returns, which are quite expensive with AusPost, due to incorrect items being dispatched, and more confidence just generally in the operations team being able to perform that pick. so ultimately saving label generation times with APIs through third parties, and just allowing different teams to do different tasks while the picking and packing team do that task. Overall, customer satisfaction is just higher. Customers are confident in their ability, which in turn just increases revenue and sales, moving forward from existing customers.
Yeah, that's so interesting to hear, and it is really hard to quantify those savings other than just knowing you've got happier customers, which is great to hear. You also saved over $20,000 in 6 months. Could you break down where you saw those cost savings coming from?
Yeah, look, we saved probably over $20,000 from removing our ERP from our stack, which is about 17,000 AU per annum. We've also saved approximately $500 to $600 in printing and costs, and having to print several pick slips and labels and all that type of stuff. We've probably also got an additional 10 to maybe 5, 10, maybe even 15 grand saving from accounting costs, not having to have a separate system to reconcile between it all. So instead of, say, having a Shopify and an ERP and then start ship it and then our accounting system, we can pretty much just have it now in our accounting system with Shopify directly. And it's almost still hard to quantify it because there's probably more savings there. Given there's a less complicated stack, there's less management of that stack as well.
Yeah, and when you put it like that, I mean, all of those things really add up. So I guess it is a no-brainer. Thanks very much,
That's all
Chris.
right. Thank you.
We'll move on to Francis. Francis, would you be able to tell us a little bit about how Socket Mobile is helping merchants today?
Yeah, totally. Thank you, Alex. Hey, look, I like to tell a little story, something that happened to me recently with a merchant. They gave us an interesting feedback, and I think the perfect representation of how merchants use our solutions today. So I'm based in the US in Atlanta, and we have a convention every September called DragonCon. So that's like a sci-fi and a fantasy convention. So if you know Comic-Con on the West Coast, that's our version of it, right? And so that's a big convention for 5 days. About 80,000 visitors go to this convention center. So that's very heavily attended. Merchants that usually operate online, go and open a pop-up store, very, very busy for 5 days. So if you think about having the need to be mobile, to be able to scale, to prepare for Black Friday, that's like the cold run for that, right? And so this year, my teenage daughter, I insisted that we go to there. So I spent 2 days surrounded with people in elf and orc costume. That was a blast. And so the second day, my daughter stopped in front of a pop-up store that sells tiaras, just tiaras, hundreds of them. And she said, "Hey, well, what about we look for that? Maybe I will to buy one for my Halloween costume, right?" So she goes into the pop-up store and start trying on tiaras, take one from the rack, put it on her head, look herself in the mirror, doesn't really like this one, trying a couple of other ones until she finds something she likes, she likes what she sees in the mirror, say, okay, that's the one, let's go to checkout now, right? And we go to checkout. I realize that the merchant that run this tiara store is using Socket Mobile for the barcode scanner. So they have an iPad with Shopify, and they have one of these scanners, right? One of our companion style scanners for scanning the items. And I was asking them, how did you come up with this one? You like the scanner? How did you decide on using this scanner? And they told me something that was I found very interesting, right? So they told us that they're using the scanners for the online or the e-commerce activity for a little while. And they do like 5 times, 6 times a year this type of pop-up store and very heavily attended. And they realize that every single person that eventually will buy a tiara from them go through the exact same shopper experience, the one I just described my daughter, right? They want to try on the tiara, they want to put it on their head, they want to see how they look like in it, right? And it was very important for them to make the label with the SKU and the barcode on it as small as possible, as discreet as possible. And just to show you what that looks like, the kind of label they were using, that's this thing here, right? It's smaller than my fingernail, right? But by making the label so small, they could put it on the back, on the branch of the tiara, and when you try it on, it completely disappears, right? Before that, they were using a much bigger label. They were just typing in the code, and they see people trying on the tiara in the store with a big label dangling on the side. Nobody looks good like this, right? So moving on to this small label allowed them to have operating in this very intensive environment, being able to scan accurately every single time, being able to move within the pop-up store easily with a portable device, but without compromising on the shopper experience. And it may look like a small thing, right, this kind of change, but it had tangible impact on the business result, where the conversion rate were higher the moment they started using the very small label, right? And so I like very much this feedback, this story that this merchant was telling us, right? Because it's the best encapsulation possible of what we're doing today, right? So for you that are not completely familiar with Socket, we provide this type of data capture solutions for merchant and for other industries. And so that means barcode scanner, the companion style scanner that I was showing before, RFID scanners, and the one that are very popular in our in the merchant domain, in our retail industry, right, is the one that the companion that just showed, and also this one which attached to your phone, right? That's more for like a one-ended solution, and attached on the back of your phone, and that's what the team at Luna Rae was using, right?
Yeah, great. Um, just a quick question for maybe Chris and Francis. How did you guys end up linking up? What was the need to go with Socket? Maybe that's a question for you, Chris.
Just making sure I've just changed some audio slightly, still working. I guess Socket's pretty much like the leader in my view of scanners. It works with Shopify POS natively. It's got good support across devices, both Android and iOS. And it's got the ability to do application mode as well as standard keyboard mode. And they just last forever. I mean, like we need things that last for a very long time and we can rely on, and that's why we picked those devices.
Yeah, they look pretty slick in the video content I've seen of them as well. Francis, with peak season coming up, are there any best practices for managing the scanners day to day? For example, keeping them charged or any other tips you might have?
Yeah, I mean that's a couple of good practices, like common sense practices, but there's one thing I like to mention, which is talking to merchant. They don't necessarily realize always that they have some additional features in the scanner that they can use already bundled, and that can help them on a day-to-day, right? A pretty common example we see in fulfilling online orders or inventory management, is the multi-scan, right? Having multiple codes on your packaging. And we see often up merchant that buys, packaged product, resell packaged product, will receive from the manufacturer a box that has already some codes on it, and then they will add their own SKUs and all specific code that they print from Shopify or from the app on it, right? And it may end up looking something like this. I have another prop here, right? So that's a kind of situation where you have a UPC from the manufacturer here. You may have a QR code, from the manufacturer that leads to the box, to the product page, and on the other side of the box, that's where you put your own SKU, right? And so one of the problem we see with some of our merchants is that, well, they have misscan, right? They will scan by mistake the UPC, they will scan by mistake the QR code, they'll waste some time on this type of small operations, right? And what they don't necessarily realize is merchant, we like to kind of educate them along the way, is they can already program the scanner, the one they have already in their hand, to be able to scan only the code that matters, the one that they have. So you can, that's already there, that's already programmable, and that just take a second to do it. And you can instruct the scanner to say, disregard all the other codes, the UPC from the manufacturer, the QR code, don't read that, just read my SKU, right? And that makes a big difference, right? Because we see merchants doing all sort of gymnastic to be able to avoid, scanning the wrong code. So they will put the N in front of the bad code and scan around it, or We see other merchant that takes the SKU and put it like on the UPC, make sure that they print a label and put it on the UPC. It has to be exactly on top of it to cover it completely, right? But all of these kind of strategies to avoid scanning the wrong code, while they can just instruct the scanner to just like disregard all the other code, just scan mine, right? And you can think about that in the day-to-day. That's already helpful, like when you fulfill your orders, when you manage your returns, all in your standard workflows. But when it becomes really important is um, at the time when you do inventory counts, right? Before the busy season right now, we all do inventory counts. After that, we're going to do another one. Sometimes we do it in between to make sure inventory stays in sync and we don't create frictions with customers. And so imagine you're gonna scan a lot for a long time. The boxes has to have the correct code pointing out. So if you can just instruct your scanner, scan only my SKUs, you are saving a lot of time, right? Nobody likes to do the inventory counts. It's never fun. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. We cannot make it go away completely, but we can make it a little bit easier.
Yeah, those are some great tips, and definitely things I haven't considered. We have a couple of questions from the audience as well, which I think we can jump into. David, I can see you here. Good to have you here. This one's for you, Chris. One thing that David has flagged that has held them back from using the app is around the stock on hand component. How are you managing that at the moment?
I'm just having a look at it now. I think, the mobile app or like even Starship, it generally doesn't manage stock on hand. So it only receives the order coming in once it's been validated and like been ordered into Shopify or I guess whatever other channel it is. Once that comes in, then it just gives you the stock to use. So I guess we use the inventory function in Shopify, and then that flows into the order will flow into Starship. It's not kind of managing inventory at all. If that makes sense. I think, if multiple locations, we don't manage multiple locations, but I assume you probably could do that with maybe the Starship at the multi Starship instance possibly could work as well. What do you reckon, Alex? Would that work for that?
Yeah, I think you covered it. Yeah, that you can also do the multi locations through Shopify, and then that will feed through to Starship it. So it really depends on how you're managing your inventory, but it is a good thing to flag, David, and would love to talk to you about it a bit more offline and get your thoughts as well.
I would say as well, just like I very much like Shopify's management of inventory, just because that's the front end of everything, and so we like to make sure that the inventory and all the bundling and all that type of components is done in Shopify, not in a third-party platform. Just because if there's a sync issue between those channels, it can cause some issues. So and having the front end calculating that is quite beneficial in most cases, especially in peak. And we saw that recently in a sale where a third-party application that was managing stock kind of caused some issues. So, yeah.
Cool. I see a question that's come in via Mark through the webinar chat around how do you automate printing the packing slips via this process to go with the goods. So think I can probably take that one. With the mobile app in this flow, you typically wouldn't have a packing slip. So I guess what you're talking about, Mark, is do you would include something in the box with the order. In that case, we do have some functionality through the desktop app where you can print packing slips automatically, and that would be completely separate to the mobile app process. Typically, with using the app, you'd be getting rid of that step altogether. I guess having that double scan as you go through while you're picking and as you're packing may eliminate some of the need for putting something in the box. Yeah, hopefully that answers that one.
You can, sorry Alex, you can print, we investigated this back in the infancy stage of the application, you could print packing slips on like an A4 paper per slip and then have a barcode on it to scan it in the application to load it up for a pick stage and then include it the way through. But we don't include them because it's just not something that's needed in our kind of industry. But that would work. We tested that and it does work.
Cool. Another question there for you, Chris, which is around how you manage the engraving process on your orders, I guess, via the mobile app. Are you seeing that info or?
Yeah, we effectively have items in our Shopify store that are kitted or bundled with Shopify bundling, and then it breaks it out into kind of service items and then product items. And for our engraving, we have like a two-step process where we ship the engraving kit or the imprint kit first, and then we subsequently get that back from the customer, engrave that item, and then ship the secondary shipment. So I guess the way we do it is we have a bundled item coming in, the bundle breaks it out into 4 items and start ship it. Then we ship just the imprint kit component of it themselves. It's tagged with imprint on the way through, so we know it's an imprint order. We ship that first component, so first fulfillment of just the imprint kit, and then it is awaiting for the customer to come back with the imprint kit. And then once we do that, we ship the second fulfillment, which is the item that's been imprinted in the imprint studio, and then the services get kind of consolidated at the same time.
Cool, thanks for covering that one. That's really interesting, actually. We have another question in here around using users. So my staff have downloaded the Pick and Pack app and have joined via invitation, and they appear in tags as their email address. Am I able to change how these users appear or give them nicknames? So that's really touching on that auditing piece that I did show very briefly. At the moment, we will just we'll add their names as their user accounts. We don't have functionality to give them nicknames, but I can imagine with long emails, it might be kind of hard to see that in the UI as a tag. So it's a great feature idea, Emily. Happy to talk to you about that offline. Cool. Another question is around having multiple team members work on the same batch of orders at the same time. I know, Chris, you've talked a little bit about that. How would you approach having, I guess, different people in your team all using the mobile app?
I think we don't really classify them kind of as batches anymore. We just kind of pick from oldest to newest in our queue. Really, you can kind of mix it up any way. So you could have somebody that does pick and pack. So when we're in like non-pick periods, we might have somebody doing pick and pack the whole component. Or you can have a picker pick the orders, and then, which it might be in the video for the case study we did, and then we shift that over to the packing station. The packing team packs those orders. So that can be picked up by anybody really. They're just scanning the tote effectively to say they've got that tote. So yeah, it's very easy to move between A and B, ultimately.
Yeah, I think when we were doing the mobile app, as I said, there was we really wanted to enable those workflows between different users. So as you said, there is quite good handoff between pickers and packers, but there's also, multiple ways you can do it. You could have multiple people just picking via the app, which is the process of running around and getting the items from your shelves. And then you might be handing over to someone on desktop because you might have labels set up at your workstations and you don't really want them to be packing from the phone. And so that's completely fine. You can kind of set everything up in any different way. And if you're picking into a tote, then when the tote arrives at the packing station, they can scan that tote and bring up the order from Starship at desktop as well, so that they work together. That kind of flows in well to a question here from Paul around how do you identify the tote between picking to packing and label stage. So I guess I can give a high-level overview of how that tote process works. So on the mobile app, you will load in your totes. There's quite a few configurable settings there, whether you're doing one order to one tote, and whether you want the app to provide kind of recommendations. So let's say you are picking 20, you've got 20 totes. You can load all those totes in, and as you put items into each tote, then trying to think of the best way to describe this. So you've got 20 orders and you have to pick 5 t-shirts, and 2 go into tote 1 and 2 go into tote 3. The app will then tell you if you try to put it in the wrong tote that actually it's supposed to be in tote 3. Or yeah, it'll also recommend it like, hey, you've already put 3 items from that order into this tote number 20 and put it there. So that's the picking stage of the tote process. So you're loading the totes in and then putting them into the totes as you go. And then you drop that at the packing station, and then the packer will scan the tote barcode, and it will bring up for you what order or orders was in that tote. And then you can then use packing validation for that double level of validation to bring up the order and then print out the label. Hopefully that answers that one. There is another question in here around RFID tag scanners instead of barcodes. So I'm not sure if Chris, have you guys ever thought about RFID?
We
Or
have thought about
Francis?
RFID. I was going to say on that last question as well, we just have QR barcodes on each tote. That's how we scan to know what they are. We have looked at it, like RFID tags. It's just something that it's reasonably cost inhibitive compared to standard barcodes, and it's just something that we haven't really gone too far into, and the stock's never really out, you know what I mean, because it's an in-out type system and it's heavily kind of regulated. So we haven't seen a big need for it. I do see the value in being able to wave the wand and just find out what stock you've got. But yeah, it's not something we've looked at it. We just haven't gone too far into it, to be honest. Yeah, we'd have to make it work. We'd have to impose it across our manufacturing chain, which just probably it's quite a big job, I guess.
Francis, did you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I think, look, we see a lot of traction with RFID now, in particular in a certain segment of retail. So that's definitely something which is on our mind. We do have a line of RFID readers, but that's not all RFID is the same, right? So we have there's different technology at play here. But yeah, as Chris was saying, there's applicable today in certain very specific environment. We see a certain large retailer in high value item, for in-store management will add RFID tags to boxes to kind of help with fraud prevention and help with the checkout process and the backend processes as well. So we see certainly some traction, in particular that's still related to a certain number of industries just because the cost is much higher. So that's something we keep an eye on. Yeah.
Yeah, I know we actually have looked into this a little bit from our end as well. We have a couple of customers using RFID, as you say, Francis, in those really kind of high value industries. So I think one is a ski and snowboarding shop. And so yeah, they use it for stock takes. We have a partner who's integrated. They'll scan all their items, and then they'll call Starship it to get the label only once they've validated that everything is in the box. So yeah, it is definitely it's there as an option. But yeah, I think in some cases it's a little bit cost prohibitive. Another question just came through around gift notes and how would the system warn if there's been a special request, as it's normally on the pick slip. So I like to think of the mobile app much like a digital pick slip. It has that same information. So as long as the order is importing as a note from Shopify, we should be able to show that to you in the app. I'd have to double check if it's showing right now, but if it's not, it would be something we would definitely be keen to add, as that gift notes is a real problem in that picking space, is making sure that the pickers actually get to see it at the time that they're packing the order. So
We
thanks for
also
highlighting that one.
we also have Shopify flows that check that there's a note, and if there's a note, it puts a tag on the order, so that we see the tag in the application, and then from there, it'll get shifted out to get that note done, and then brought back in.
Cool. I guess another question here is around batch and bulk label printing. So that is something you would probably typically do with a paper slip. If you guys are familiar with the packing summary, you might select 20 orders and then you'd print out a PDF that consolidates those items, saying across all these orders you might have 15 necklaces and 10 rings. It works the exact same way in the mobile app for your picking. You can select 5, 10, 20 orders in one go. And then the mobile app will both allow you to sort the items according to the bin location, which allows you to do smart things like make sure you're walking in a optimized route. You don't want to be running to the back of the warehouse and then back to the front and then over to the left. You can kind of follow that order and go and get all of those items. And then again, if you're using totes, all you have to do is just put them into the totes and drop them to your packing station. So yeah, that covers the kind of batching. You can also do batch packing. Not as common though. Typically you're looking at orders one by one for packing, but that is there. I think we probably have time for one final question, which we have one here around integrating with all carriers. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that Starshipper really offers is you can add all your couriers to Starshipper. As Chris was saying earlier, they've got a multi-courier strategy, and from the mobile app, there's no difference in the carrier. You can have them pre-selected via your rules, and then when you pack and print, they're all it's already all done for you. Or if you need to change your app printing time, you can also do that. So yeah, the app is that multi-carrier option there for you. Cool. Francis and Chris, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Nothing else on my side. Thanks so much, Alex.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, your descriptions there, Francis. Very helpful.
Nothing on my side either. Thanks heaps for having us.
Great. It's been awesome chatting, guys. Thanks everyone for tuning in.